technologies, role of academia and professionals. Without further ado, and with a huge round of applause, I would request Dr. Sadia Ishtiaq Numan, focal person for the conference and faculty member from the Department of Communication and Media Studies, Fatma Jinnah Women University, to start the session. Please, ma'am.
Welcome students, faculty members, distinguished guests, and my panelist for the plenary session titled Emerging Ethical Concerns in Digital Media, Ecology's Role of Academia and Professionals. The rapid development in the field of media communication has its lots of impact on media industry and journalistic practices, but it also has some associated perils, and for that we have a very distinguished panel here with us. I am going to start with our first panelist, which is Dr. Bushra Hamidur Rahman. Dr. Bushra Hamidur Rahman is the president of AMCAP, and she has over 20 years of research and teaching experience at the University of Punjab, and then she has been the editor of Journal of Media Studies since 2010. Then I would like you to come to the stage and start with your presentation on this.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sadia. Well, basically, today's topic is again very close to my heart also, and one of the reasons why we had put this session in the plenary session, because we felt that everybody is talking about digital media, but at the same time we need to work on our ethical concerns with reference to digital media. So I will be raising a few questions and also talking about a few values there. Can you please change the slide? Basically, I want to talk to, perhaps you can sit with us, everything that will be easier. Okay. Oh, where is it? Basically, what I want to talk about is that digital media ethics is a challenge, and how do we need to walk our talk? We talk about value system. It is part of our discussions, but when it comes to actually applying them, walking them, making it part of our practical professional life, we failed. So this my talk is with reference to this. Why do we need to talk about digital media ethics? Can we talk about universals to walk our talk? And the question is, how do we do that? And then I'm going to share a couple of examples in that regard. Next slide. First, we need to understand how we understand the concept of media ecology. Media ecology is basically, it looks into the matter how media communication affect perception, understanding, feelings, and values, and how our interactions with media facilitates or impedes our chances of our survival. The new technologies are giving us communication abundance with complications and contradictions. With global reach comes global responsibilities. We need a cosmopolitan journalism that reports issues and events in a way that reflect this global plurality of view and the power relation between them. To practice journalism that helps different groups understand one another. Journalism with global perspective is needed to help citizens understand the daunting global problems of poverty, environment degradation, and technological inequalities and political instability. These problems require concerted global action. The question is, how do we do it? Can you go to the next slide? What is required is a sustained effort and critical dialogue of the media scholars, journalists, and members of the public offices to see how digital media ethics can be reformed and reinvented. This radical rethinking of the principles and standards of media ethics cannot be accomplished today or even tomorrow. Many conceptual and practical obstacles must be overcome. However, the hope is that in time, this search for a digital media ethics will lead to fundamental change and how we think about digital media ethics. So we do realize that we need digital media ethics, but it cannot happen just like that. It has to go through a process for which we need to work together. Today's session is only an exploration to the barely charted terrain of the ethics of the future. It is an invitation to our audience and our participants to join the robust and growing debate on the prospects of digital media ethics beyond borders. Next slide. We are going to talk about digital media ethics, and we'll try to raise some tough theoretical and practical questions. Are there universal values in journalism or in news media? How would a global media ethics do justice to the cultural, political, and economic difference around the world? The objective of this session is to address these difficult questions. How do we need to work on major issues theoretically and apply them to specific contexts and problems? Next slide. The interesting thing with digital media is that we are also in a state of dilemma, because there are two ways of looking to the digital media. And according to Robin Benson, she says that on one side we have the celebrants, the optimists, who believe the possibilities with the digital media are immense. Digital media is an agent that overrides all obstacles and has the power to determine outcomes. People have long dreamed of communication technologies that will grant humans greater freedom, more power, and everlasting peace. They call it revolutionary. Whereas the skeptics or the pessimists that anticipate undeniable outcomes, and they say that the technologies provide the illusion of companionship with the demands of a relationship. And it is creating more loneliness, it is creating more hatred, it is creating more distances and differences. Next slide. So this was just a little background. Now, according to Dr. Clifford, these are the major ethical issues of digital media from a media studies point of view. Number one, distributed justice, state surveillance, political economy, global citizenship, the ethics of violence, privacy concerns, and sexual content. With reference to distributive justice, basically it's about equal distribution of digital media to everyone, irrespective of their economic status. And we know it from research, and we also have this data that accessibility to digital media of developed countries far more than of the developing countries. So this is one of the major concerns with reference to digital media. And there is also this concern about the big data, which creates a new class hierarchy in which the people and organizations can be categorized into three groups: those who create data, those who have the means to collect it, and those who have the expertise to analyze it. So in that way also we see discrimination, and this Christopher calls it as distributive justice. State surveillance, though we have the digital media around us, but then there is a constant surveillance from the state, and also how different laws are being made, and how frequently different how they are blocked by the state also. And then we have this third concern with reference to digital media, which is with reference to political economy, how the institutional structures are of special importance to global media ethics, and how the ownership is determining the content and accessibility of digital media. Global citizenship, are we really global? Are we really becoming global or not? And if we are, what are the responsibilities of a global citizen? These are also the concerns. Then the next one is the ethics of violence, how the digital media has also been responsible for a lot of hate speech, and also of a lot of violent content in the form of games and in the form of entertainment, in the form of different serials. I mean, this is also another concern. The next one is with the reference to privacy concern, and then we have the sexual content also. With this, and the last one is the representation concern, and the gender intensity and class representation and the stereotypes. I just quickly went through all this thing because I just wanted to sensitize that these are the concerns. But what my paper basically is focusing on is that can we really talk about universals to walk our talk? So these are the concerns. How do we address them? In this postmodern era, we tend to talk about that everything is relative and nothing is absolute. So what happens is then sometimes we fall into the trap that we don't want to talk about the universals. Whereas universals is it is more about things that is acceptable to the entire humanity. So we can really talk about ethics from this perspective. And I have borrowed this concept from Dr. Clifford, and when he talks about that we can talk about universals when we are talking with reference to sacredness of human life. Next slide. Sorry. Before I do that, it's also important to understand that if we look into digital media from instrumental and functional perspective, then we look at digital media as a means to an end, and the end is are the people. But in this neoliberalism, the end, the people are the consumers. So if you are going to look at digital media from instrumental and functional perspective, we have this very big concern that how the end, the people also become a product that has to be sold, and that needs to be, so we want to change that mindset. Bob Franklin in 2005 has said that because of this instrumental functional perspective, we have come up with this concept of map journalism. Both the news, enterprise, and the fast food industry are organized around mechanical procedures and uniformity. So from this we come to the universals, and I bring Dr. Clifford's concept. And next slide. So when Dr. Clifford talks about it, this is very close to my heart also. And he talks about the universals from this perspective. That we need to work on ethics from as ethics of being, the sacredness of human life, the miracle of being. Through this universal reverence for life, we respect ourselves and genuinely value the participation of others, which includes all living in an increasingly technological age. So it's about life. So this universal value, if we can bring it in ourselves and also in our education, that the human life is sacred. And it encompasses just not you, but also everyone around you. So as your life is important to you, others' life are also important. And your life is also dependent on the other. And he explains it further. Can you go to the next slide? By saying that if you have this concept of sacredness of human life, then we can talk in three terms. He says the ethics of truth, the ethics of human dignity, and the ethics of non-violence. Can you move to the next slide? When he's talking about ethics of truth, he's basically talking, next slide, he's basically talking about LTR. And what he's trying to say is that truth needs to be understood from this perspective, that it is not just compilation of correct information. Truth is trying to go beyond what is apparent. It is disclosing what is genuinely underneath something. So we need to work on this concept of truth. So and then this is very important because in today's time, when it comes to digital media, we are talking about data journalism also and data mining also. And what we are trying to do here is that we are just trying to create correlations, whereas the reality is far more complex. And if we think that truth is only uh, by sort of making the correlations, you can come to the truth. We are mistaken. Truth is going beyond what is apparent. So it basically requires a lot of interpretive paradigm. It basically requires understanding of the context. So from the journalism point of view, what we need to understand is that compilation of facts is not good enough. And saying that we need to be objective is also a myth that we need to get out of. Saying that we are just here to report, we have to and when he is disclosing something, it has to be in that context that whatever he is talking about is also going to affect him. So it's like he's part of that community that must be kept in mind when you are doing journalism. So it's about empathy also. It's about making sure that your facts are contextualized and you're not just making simple linear relations when we are reporting something. So this is how I explain the ethics of truth. The next one. Next slide is with reference to respect of human dignity and this African concept of humanism. And then we also have this concept of Islamic ethics, that everybody is born with dignity, whether rich or poor. We had this session in the morning. And the third one, which is a golden rule, which says, do unto others what you want to do to yourself. So we need to look into whatever we are writing, we need to look into from these perspectives. Also, now the humanism basically is about that I am because you are, and my existence is because the community is there, and the community is there because I am. So जो हमारा जो पूरा concept of हम है, और जब तक we don't consider ourselves as part of the whole, we will not be talking about the whole as I. So it's a little complex idea. I think it should be easier for us to understand. जैसे हमारे यहाँ सारा हम सब दुआएं मांगते हैं रब्बना आतिना इहदिना सिरातल मुस्तकीम हमारे अल्लाह हमारी प्यारी हिदायत दे हमें माफ कर. So this hum is like you hardly have your praise with मैं मेरे लिए या मेरे रब. You always say hum. तो ये concept हमारे अंदर है कि ये हम है. ये तुम you are not the other. You are not the inferior other. The other is me and me is the other. And this is जो हमारी हदीस भी है कि आईना जो है वो में एक दूसरे का आईना होते हैं. तो वो एक दूसरे के साथ है तो हमारी एग्जिस्टेंस है. तो दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. और इसको अगर हम प्रैक्टिकली अप्लाई करना चाहें, we will see that in community India, in which everybody is working for common good, not for my good. So it is our good, and this common good has been हमारे business college में भी लामा इकबाल ने भी सब बात की और डॉक्टर ने भी इसकी बात की. So as you go into so ये जो common जो हम है ये एक ईस्टर्न कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं है, वेस्ट कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं है, सिर्फ अफ्रीकन कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं है, बल्कि ये एक यूनिवर्सल कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ हम है और ये यूनिवर्सल कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ डिग्निटी ऑफ द ह्यूमन बीइंग है. उसको हमने अपनी एथिक्स के अंदर हम किस तरह से अपनी जो प्रैक्टिस में हम उसको कैसे रिफ्लेक्ट कर सकते हैं, दैट इज व्हाट इज रिक्वायर्ड. तो जो हमारे पास कम्युनिटी एरिया है, इट डज दैट फंक्शन टू अ लॉट ऑफ एक्सटेंट. और जब हमारे यहाँ हम आ जाता है तो फिर then we also talk about the voiceless, we talk about poverty, we talk about poor with again empathy. तो जो हमारा concept है कि अगर कोई जिस्म का एक हिस्से में तकलीफ होती है, the whole body is affected. So it's the same thing here. कि when you're talking about human dignity, you're talking about the pain of the other as your own pain. So I mean, it's something like we are not here to enjoy. We're not here to make money out of the other people's pain. We are here to feel their pain. And when we report about something about pain, it's about trying to bring more humanness and trying to connect ourselves with the other. And the last but not the least is with reference to ethics of non-violence. Basically, to counter oppression, we sometimes feel that when there is oppression and when there is this zulm, the best way is to react. So if he is bad, if they are bad, we need to become more bad, so that, or we need to become worse to counter that oppression. I was reading the other day, Quran also says that when you are faced with oppression, deal with it with steadfastness, with patience, and also by forgiving them, by overlooking it also. So sometimes to stop the violence, it's also an important value to become better. I'm not saying to become the same, I think to become better, or not just to be what you are. You have to react in a better way, so that the idea is not about you, the idea is not about I, the idea is about the larger concept of humanity. So your cause of working for humanity is far bigger than your personal I and personal egos. So we need to refrain from hate speech, we need to refrain from confrontational speech, we need to be less reactive, and then violence in entertainment needs to be checked, we need to be more cautious, we have a lot of catharsis, we feel अभी हालांकि जिक्र जरूर अभी हो रहा था और फिर हम उसको उस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में भी देखते हैं, लेकिन ये वायलेंस जो है हमारी नेटफ्लिक्स में इट्स सो मच रेम्पेंट है और वो हमारा एक किस्म का we started accepting it as a norm, but that needs to be critically looked into. और फिर हम violence को इसीलिए कहते हैं because it sells. War reporting में भी it's the same thing because it sells. Terrorism because it sells. So alternatives are peace journalism. End of the day, what basically I'm trying to say is that talking about digital media ethics is not easy. People have been writing about it. We talk about it in academics. And the practical life has some other ways of looking into it. And where is the midway, or what is the way that we need to move forward? But it's a slow process, but we need to look into it, because if we want to sustain life in the coming future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Busha, for perfectly summarizing media ethics. My next speaker is Mr. Kamal Siddiqui. Mr. Kamal Siddiqui is a senior journalist. He's currently the director of Center for Excellence in Journalism at Karachi Institute of Business Administration. Previously, he was the editor of the Express Tribune, the Pakistani affiliate of the International Herald Tribune. Mr. Siddiqui has a master's degree from London School of Economics and Media. So please.
Thank you very much, everybody. Special thanks to Dr. Busha and to the association AMCAP, and of course to our hosts, the Fatma Jinnah University, and all these enlightened souls that I see before me. So thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak. While Dr. Busha has taken an academic point of view in terms of dealing with this topic, which is quite a difficult topic, to be honest, I'll try to take a more practical, professional point of view on this. When we talk about digital media ecologies with a new normal, I want to talk about a bit about ethics, a bit about when we're looking at how digital media has evolved. So when we look at digital media itself in Pakistan and all over the world, for me, there are lots of challenges that have emerged with digital media. And these challenges are such that I think as working journalists, I think these are some things that uh, have to be kept in mind in terms also in terms of how journalism is changing and how I feel that the world in terms of media and journalism is changing with the emergence of digital media. To give you an idea about digital media, to give you some understanding, when I joined the Express Tribune as the editor, the ratio was between print readers and digital readers was 1 to 5 at the most. By the time I had left, it had grown to 1 to 50. For every one print reader, there were 50 readers on digital platforms. The other lesson that we learned was also that with the newer generation, younger people like my audience today, those days of going to websites had ended, and how news was consumed was also changing. And with the one sort of landmark that we saw in Pakistan was when smartphones exceeded the television screens. And that's when we realized that how news is being presented will change. Now I'm going to focus my experiences on news. I'm not going to the entire media. I'll talk about the news media itself and its consumption and the challenges that we faced when we look at digital media. So the first challenge, of course, when we look at the consumption of news on smartphones is the fact that how we package the news, how we give you the news also has to change. The days of traditional media are over. And what we're seeing now is that when we look at media platforms, what we're also seeing is that in terms of digital media, while there are a lot of advantages, there are a lot of disadvantages as well, and they are affecting how news is being presented. To begin with, the core concept of citizen journalism has evolved. And what we're seeing is that there was a time when I was studying mass communication where we talked about media platforms, we talked about people, then we talked about media organizations and how the information was disseminated. Today, what we are seeing is that people have become media platforms themselves. What we see is that there are people out there who have more followers on Twitter than there are number of circulation of newspapers. So what we are seeing today is that a lot of people have actually become more powerful than the traditional media outlets of the past. And this is it's an interesting phenomenon. I'm not saying it's good or bad. It is something that's a reality that we have to live with. Now, when we talk about media platforms, we also talk about the concept of citizen journalism and how citizen journalism has emerged as one of the areas through which people are influencing news. We're also looking at the institution of influencers. Again, when we're looking at digital media evolving, we're seeing that news, which was once the purview of journalists, is no more the purview of journalists. People out there can make, shape, break news even when they're not journalists. So the challenge, of course, for us in all this is the fact that the quality of news is being affected in some ways. And we see that in the form of fake news. And we've seen the prevalence of fake news. We see institutions, we see organizations, we see states promoting and in some way pushing fake news. And that is one of the challenges when we look at digital media and we see mainstream media. The big advantage that mainstream media has over the new media or the digital media is the fact that a lot of fake news is proliferating through the new digital media. So that's one challenge I feel that I need to highlight. Other than that, when we talk about digital media, it has its advantages. Of course, the first is geographical outreach. Digital media can be accessed anywhere in the world at any time. The second, of course, is immediacy. Like you can immediately get information that you would have to wait one day to get in a newspaper or a few hours to get on television. You get that immediately through social media. The challenge here, of course, is that the quality of the information is something to question. When we talk about anonymity, digital media also affords anonymity, which leads to legal and ethical complications or questions. A lot of people give out information without even taking into account the legal or ethical repercussions. You may not know this, but the most popular platform for the exchange or the dissemination of news or information in Pakistan is not actually a news platform. It's a it's WhatsApp. WhatsApp isn't a news platform, but much of the news that people receive today, consume today, comes through WhatsApp. The other, of course, is Instagram. Keeping this in mind, what we're also seeing with the ecology in terms of how digital media is evolving is the fact that what were technically traditional platforms of news dissemination are now changing. We also, the question, of course, for us now is that with the change, with the ecology, with the way in the new normal, how news is being disseminated, who decides who stays, who doesn't? Our biggest, of course, example, whether we like it or not, was the recent US elections in which President Trump's Twitter account was stopped, was blocked by Twitter, which a lot of people applauded because he was promoting a lot of fake news. But the question, of course, is that who decides? Who decides what news has to go and what news doesn't go? And in conclusion, I'll say a couple of things. The first thing I'll say is that digital media is expanding phenomenally. And if we look at, we also mentioned this earlier in terms of TikTok. TikTok is also a source of information today, whether we like it or not. And during COVID times in Pakistan, it expanded the number of TikTok users and consumers rose to around, I think it was 300 or 400% in 5 or 6 months. So this gives you an idea about how news and information is being consumed. So the question, of course, is that with this ever-expanding digital news platforms or digital platforms, is news being affected? And I think it is. It is being affected in a very different way than we know. Of course, in looking ahead, the biggest question for us in the quality of digital media is that who decides in terms of news, who decides what should go, who decides who should say it. And that's the biggest challenge today, because if Facebook or Twitter have to decide for us, and you've seen only recently, only yesterday, we've seen that Facebook is stopped taking news from Australia. And there's a battle going on there in simple reason that who takes that news and do they pay for it? All this leads to one question, which is that who decides what is news for us? And this, of course, is the biggest challenge when we look at digital media. So here, it's a challenge. It could also be an opportunity. We have a long way to go when it comes to the evolution of digital media. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. We are very honored to have Mr. Hamid with us. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. Hamid, he doesn't require any introduction in any Pakistani gathering or international gathering. He's amongst the most credible journalists we have in Pakistan. He hosts the most popular current affairs show, which is Capital Talk for Geo News. He's known for his iconic style and on-spot analysis. He's famous bilingual column writer in national as well as international newspapers. He has interviewed many famous personalities, including John Kerry, Bill Clinton, Colin Powell, and Hamid has been awarded the Civil Award of Hilal-e-Imtiaz for his services. He has also been awarded Most Resilient Journalist Award. I think that deserves a loud clap. He's on stage on staff at the night. I call you on stage on your turn. In the meantime, we also have with us Mr. Harun Rashid, again a very eminent journalist from Pakistan. He's currently managing editor of the Independent Urdu. He has been associated with the BBC World for a period of 23 years, serving as editor in BBC Pakistan. So please, floor is all yours for 10 minutes.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Dr. Bushra and AMCAP for giving me this opportunity to again speak to the youth of Pakistan. It's always a pleasure talking to the youth, and the thing that I think we miss a lot is hearing them more than telling them a lot. I think uh, one of the reasons why West has taken lead on or takes initiatives on several fronts is that they aim on the thinking and the ideas of the youth, and that's why you see so many new products coming on the digital front. I mean, TikTok, and you can name the speed which they are coming up. As Dr. Bushra and Kamal Saab spoke a bit, I think I'll add a bit more to what Kamal Saab was saying. That I mean, this conference is taking place at a very I think appropriate time, because I remember BBC Urdu service started the first Urdu website in 2001, and that was the time when digital media started taking shape in Pakistan. So it's like 2 decades of digital media that we have witnessed in Pakistan. And since we are talking about ethics, I think the biggest problem over these 2 decades have been, which I call, I mean, if you are familiar with the package, mobile package that is, I mean, was offered to the consumers in the UK, it was pay as you go. The problem with us, as far as ethics have been, that we paid with our credibility as we learned how to be more civilized, balanced, unbiased media, and learn the credibility of the Pakistani audiences. And because of that, I think, I mean, this, as they say, I mean, this was like technological revolution over the last 20 years, if you call it, or evolution. Revolutions are always chaotic. We have seen, I mean, in the 20 years how Pakistan media has managed and tried to cope with it. But at the end, if you see some light, that is where the hope should be. But what I have learned over the years is that the initiative that should have come from the consumers, not the consumers, sorry, the journalists, the media industry owners, or people who want to keep ethical values with themselves, has not been that appropriate and elaborate as it should have been, I think. It's always the government that has come up with, as a regulator, it has I think, I mean, a responsibility to regulate things in Pakistan, and digital media comes under, to some extent, in that review as well. But it's not, as we have seen with the PICA law, which I mean, to many journalists is a PICA law, because it infringes on freedom of expression. How do you want to express yourself on your platforms? The government came up in a rush and tried to enforce it, but what the media organizations and the journalists have been complaining is that not enough consultation took place before it was enforced. And when the government or the politicians are given the opportunity to enforce some rules, you can always rest assured that they will not be what the media, a free media, would want them to do. So that is what we have seen with PICA as well. It's quite draconian, quite anti-privacy, quite anti-freedom of expression, or something like that. Some of the clauses give the government a lot of leverages. If I say something on social media or on my account, I can easily be taken to court now by one person who can lodge a complaint, and you can be dragged for like months in a court, just trying to prove that this is what I said and this is what I meant, and it didn't mean to belittle or defame anyone. So I mean, if such threats are lingering on your head, it's really difficult for even a balanced, credible journalist to say something. They are always afraid that there might be somebody would miss construe the whole statement and take me to court or something like that. So I think and that is another problem that I've seen. With the evolution of digital media in Pakistan, what we are seeing is that the media organizations that used, in a newspaper, I've worked in a newspaper, I've worked in television, I've worked in radio. There used to be processes to process a news story. There were gatekeepers, what we call gatekeepers, who would, if a reporter files a report, it goes through 3 or 4 editors before it's published. With the new norm that is now digital journalism, it's a one-man show. I don't want to name one journalist from Pakistan, but his YouTube following is 1 million, but his credibility, I don't know. I'll leave it to your imagination that how credible he is. But he's being watched. There are millions of views on his YouTube account. And so now, there is no gatekeeper. There is just one person who, if he thinks this is the right thing I'm saying, and I should be saying this, he can do it quite easily on the platform that he is using. So I think, to some extent, media organizations, journalists have not taken the initiative that they should have. I think a couple of years back we had Timra approved TV code of conduct. So it was quite late, because until then a lot of credibility was lost on Pakistani television news channels. So I think apart from blaming my own self, I think there is a part that now, because it's a digital economy, and there is this economy of attention, as you call it. So every organization, every individual is now going after that attention from you. You as a viewers or consumers need to be more informed in which website you access, or in which website you think that you will find a credible perspective. You will find, as Dr. Bush has said, truth is not just telling the truth, but the background as well, the perspective, how it happened, why it happened, who did it, all those things. So if you know, there are organizations, there are news organizations, digital organizations that do that kind of unbiased. You can't be in an ideal world 100% unbiased or anything like that. But then there are relatively unbiased or balanced organizations you can visit. So unless you start encouraging them, because the kind of content they are creating is literally very boring. As far as my website I'm concerned, it's very balanced. You have all the 5 W's and 1 H. But the thing is, it's not sensational. It's not the kind of one-man show that this other journalist is doing. Versus my all effort is waste, because it's not attracting, it's not big, effective kind of journalism that I want to do. So I think, the consumers need to take lead on this as well. If this guy is getting millions of views, how come, we are still watching him and not watching the real credible sort of platforms that we also have. So I will end my submissions on here. I think there will be a lot of questions, so we'll be happy to take those as well. Thank you very much again.
Thank you so much. We would also like to welcome Sabuk Sayyed. Thank you so much for joining us. My next speaker is Mr. Owen Sahi. He's an award-winning journalist, researcher, media trainer, and development communication specialist, having a vast experience of working with local and international media as well as development sector organization. In 2016, Sahi shared the Los Angeles Times Pulitzer Prize for Breaking News. He won International Labour Organization ILO Pakistan's Excellence in Labour Journalism Award the consecutive 2 years, 2013 and 2014. That deserves a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Ma'am Bushra. She has always been very kind to me, and she gave me this honor to share the stage with likes of Hamid Sahab, Kamal Sahab, Arun Sahab, and Sabu Sayyid Sahab. It's an honor and challenge at the same time. So we're discussing this digital media and the ethical issues. I would like to discuss it with a journalistic perspective, with a reporter's perspective, how many challenges we have been facing when it comes to digital media. We have already faced how TV journalism has changed journalism in Pakistan, as Harun Sahib was saying, where the focus right now is on the speed, not on the credibility. So we have been, there are some other problems. We are facing kind of layovers, mass layovers. More than 7,000 journalists they have been laid off in last 3-4 years. And then there's a rise of individual platforms, digital media platforms, which gives them a kind of opportunity. So there is a kind of race as well. So all those who have been unemployed, between them and even those who have been working with all these TV channels and newspapers, because this individual platform, there is some kind of sense or there is some kind of concept within Pakistan that digital media platform means maybe individualism. As an individual, you need to have one platform and you need to run it. So that poses so many challenges. That changes the whole ecosystem, the whole atmosphere. As a journalist, as a reporter, my duty was only to collect the information, process it, and give it to my gatekeepers. Then it's up to them. But in an entrepreneurial, atmosphere, where you are dealing, you are treating information as a commodity, and then you are publishing it, and then you are marketing it as well. So all those roles, they're up to me now. Like 4-5 years when I was working with an organization, I was only a reporter or a journalist who's bringing the information, and I have to face all those ethics. And by the way, most of them are basically these are the 19th century ethics which we are still been facing, and focus has always been on self-regulation, especially in Pakistan, everywhere else in the world, but especially here, because even we have academia here, even when you come out from the university and you join a news organization, the first thing you are told that you need to unlearn what you have, if you have learned anything from the university. And this is the most difficult task. Learning is natural, but unlearning is the most difficult task. So first, we'll have to face the challenge of unlearning if we have learned anything. So, and then we are into a newsroom where you have 20 people or 30 people. Some of them have been working there from last 30 years. And I remember doing a story on police. I'm not going to, relate it with the journalism. And there was some constable who were there for 30 years and they never went to a refresher course. So they don't know how to, deal with the menace of terrorism. So this is made to give you some kind of context with what kind of people, if as a journalist, a young reporter faces. Then you have, the information gathering has totally changed with these digital tools. You have WhatsApp groups, you have Twitter accounts, and that's all. There is a WhatsApp that comes. I don't know if it's been sent by the kid of Redman or somebody else. I just rush to it. And the processes, they have all gone. There's no gatekeepers at all. The pressure has always been on the journalist to get information first. Nobody would ever appreciate if you didn't get the information first, whatever you have done, how credible it is. If somebody has, reported it already that Mr. Nawaz Sharif went to washroom, and you as a reporter couldn't get that information, you are doomed, whatsoever you have done. So, the challenges as a journalist we have been facing enormous. And then, training. We have been pushed into this digital world, and we know our news organization, the one thing which they thrive on is the human resource. Because machines are all over the world cost the same. The one thing which really costs them low is the human resource. And then they don't, most of them, they hardly spend money or spend resources to train those journalists how to be part of this digital news ecosystem. And then, there's so many news people, like social media, so many people, and they're giving you breaking news. They may not be journalists, but they're part of this news ecosystem, and you're facing them as well. Hakikat TV, and there are so many which Harun Saab was trying to tell. And then your newsroom will just send the links to you. What the hell you are doing? This guy has broken the story. So, and then there's so much going on, and then there's new new kind of journalism, like computational journalism. I was reading an ad of ProPublica, and there was an ad they need to hire computational journalists, and the kind of skills they needed: data mining, working with algorithms, working with artificial intelligence, and journalistic skills would be an advantage, added advantage. So as a journalist, as a reporter, when the skills will be an added advantage, I need to learn so many new things. I need to learn how to operate mobile as a camera, as a newsroom. I need to learn how to mine data. I need to learn so many new things, maybe, and how to work with algorithms, how to work with artificial intelligence, and so forth, so on. It would go on and on and on and on. But I, as a journalist, my organization, they don't support me. There's hardly my universities. You go to any university, and they are almost teaching you almost similar kind of stuff. Why don't Karachi University specialize in mobile journalism? Why don't Lahore University of Punjab they specialize in digital journalism? Why don't Peshawar University specialize in ethical issues and ethical challenges? So we need support both from academia, from our editors and organizations as well. So otherwise this is going to become even worse what we have been seeing right now. And digital media platforms, as Harun Saab was telling, these news aggregators like Google and all of them, they have been thriving on us. For the first time in 2020 in Pakistan, digital media platforms, they got more ads than print media. Print media got 13.5 billion, and digital media platforms, they received 13.6 billion, 6 billion rupees worth ads. And lion's share went to Google and Facebook. Facebook got around 6.4 billion and Google got 5.8 billion. This was my information on which they were thriving. Who's going to ask them to pay back? As Kamal Saab was discussing yesterday, India's case study, and they have been facing a lot of backlash from these big organizations. And then my last point, I was studying a research study from 2015, and they basically went through 99 self-regulated code of ethics around the world, and there was only 9 which were dealing with the information technology and internet. It's back in 2015. So how bad we are lagging. There are new challenges, and some of them they have their own reasons. In UK, we have this telephone scams. Where journalists, they was taking telephones, and then they'll have to come out some kind of new ethical indicators. So I don't know when would we, as my academia and editors and my organizations and our PFUJs and clubs, they would get up to the task, and they would start discussing the most current and recent things and the challenges which I, being a journalist, facing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, especially for highlighting the significant challenges of journalism education in Pakistan. My next speaker is Dr. Fatma Zahra Mohammed Ahmed Al Sayed. She's an associate professor at Cairo University. Her major is new media technologies with extensive international background of education from US, UK. She is head of Islam and Media Section IMCR President and editor-in-chief of the Scientific Journal of Journalism Research. She's currently associated with the Cairo University, Egypt. Please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sadia. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Actually, this contribution consists of three parts or three sections. The first section is about the unethical realities of our world right now. I want to find out some ethical media realities. Second is the ethical standpoints that we can, as humanity, detect and highlight. And thirdly, what can we do? What's our role as academics and professionals? The first reality is what we can call it new Darwinism, new kind of natural selection that constitutes the biggest muted group in the world right now. Those people who can use digital technologies are favorable. And those people who cannot, who do not have the accessibility to digital technology or are not skilled with the necessary knowledge about to do this, are muted. Not only in the third world, but also in the West. Most of the elderly people who are constituting 80% and 70% of the population in the Western societies do not have the skills to use digital technology or digital devices. They are the largest muted group in the world right now. So this is the first unethical reality about media technology. Or as Gary Templeton said in 2019, this is kind of new natural selection. New natural selection with the preservation of the favorable variation and the rejection of the injurious variation exist. The focal point here is that digital media technology created its own index that became a source of human culture. Digital inventions innovate ideas, innovate beliefs, innovate ethics, norms, as fundamental segments of our culture, of our humanity culture. These digital media rituals influence human culture in a hyper-indexicality process. And the continuity of the cycle enables digital inventions to construct what we call a cultural niche. I would indicate here four examples of these complicated realities or unethical realities that we cannot detect it and evaluate it as ethical as we can do, because it is really accelerating in a very rapid pace. The algorithm, the filter bubble, the drones, and the bots. First point is that the algorithm. The algorithm, in simple words, is a program designed to perform certain function into database. It should be originally for human interest, for us as users to facilitate our mission to search in databases or these big data bodies. But now they are doing completely different things. It's not for us. We are just commodity. As we will see, business firms are the real customers of the social media networks. And we are the commodity. Algorithms are used to keep us commodity and to make us an easy subject for the business firms to promote more successful strategies of promotions and etc. So, do you have an idea about the pragmatic case algorithm used by Netflix to read our minds and to identify the budgets of the movies that are predictable to be favorable by the viewers? They are reading our minds through this algorithm to know to identify the budget of the movie according to the predicted profits that would come from watching. But the most critical two functions of algorithms are modeling us, and monitoring. And modeling is critical. If we just know that in 2015, 180,000 abusers have been accused with terrorism by analyzing their activities on vContact. And vContact, as you know, one of the largest or the most largest social media in Russia. By analyzing their activities on vContact, the main social, the economists accused this network by detaining those people just because they have some keywords in their accounts referring to some accused groups of terrorism, like ISIS and other groups. So just for some false accusations, I would classify certain people as terrorists. And in 2017, and during the British referendum to stay in the European Union, the Facebook has admitted to spreading misleading information from Russian resources, not only in the UK but also in the US before the US presidential elections. The Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg declared in one of the CNN interviews that he knows nothing about these crimes, about these violations. All what he can promise is that he will work not to make this happen again. But it's not a justification, of course. The crime is already done. What Facebook contributed, and this is another crime, what Facebook contributed to in Myanmar constitutes a crime against humanity by spreading hate speech against the Rohingya minority, which led to numbing of the national conscience toward the crimes of genocide and ethnic cleansing that were committed against them and led to the massive exodus in July 2017. In the study of Bayo in 2019 concluded that Facebook also used an algorithm that classifies users according to multicultural affinity without having any consent from these users or from those people. The data they are selling the data of those people to advertisers. And they have done the same as in the monitoring function. They are doing the same. Facebook also, we were shocked. It was in 2016. Announcement by Facebook that consulting company collected accounts that are showing interest of Black Lives Matter movement and sold it to the police. And this is an admission. It's not a secret. So also in 2018, we were shocked when Facebook admitted that there's one agent of Cambridge Analytica, Alexander Kogan, is a Russian expert in computer science, Alexander Kogan, pulled out more than 87 million accounts of American citizens for the benefit of Donald Trump presidential election campaign. So challenging privacy is clear in Facebook policy of facial recognition. Also, this policy that identifies people as profiled, but this policy encountering judicial complication in implemented in the US. The second unethical reality, which is the filter bubble, is a consequence of applying algorithms. Instead of this filter bubble, yes. Okay, the filter bubble is coined by Alice Parser in 2011, and instead of making the knowledge that broaden our minds, the search engines generate lots of subjective and filter the information. Observers claim that this function contradicts with creativity because creativity and innovation to predict our keywords in a simple search process. How could we trust autonomous machines like drones to make decisions in times of war and sensitive cases? They must also easily falsify the trends on the social media. In addition, it facilitates fake news spreading, and this diminishes the opportunities of justice and democracy in our world. If ethics concern with what is good and what's bad and how to live good life, how to define rights and responsibilities, I know it's challenging. Who is qualified to give us these instructions or give us this experience, what to do, what not to do? But still, we need ethics in our life. Why? Because taking ethics is an option of extinction or survival. It's that simple. So we have to choose. Without ethics, we cannot reach any agreement between humans on this planet. So we have to make agreement on some ethics and live together and coexist with differences. Knowledge progression, and this is the fundamental mission. I want just to point out the question Hamid in 2018 when he claimed that although humans are made of the same components of the cosmos, we are controlling the globe. Why? Have not fixed, and they will never happen. we have to be conscious for this. Our role as academics will be in very brief flashcards. We should improve our critical thinking abilities for ourselves and for independent learners. Second is sharing the and rejecting monopoly and just suggest the alternative, resist privacy violation, and what happens to WhatsApp policy is an example, and prohibiting what's sorry, and we have to establish fairness in the relationship between digital media providers and users, and the users try to use updated initiating an accountability supremacy to identify algorithms, developers who design algorithms that has maybe harmful implications. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fatma. Across cultural experiences are always important for research and development. My next speaker is Ms. Darwinia Tareen. She's a journalist, legal expert, and social activist from Balochistan. She's qualified with double master's degree in mass communication, international relations, and law. She is the recipient of 3 Fulbright scholarships, Hubert H. Humphreys Fellow, ICFJ Fellow, and Distinguished Humphrey Leadership Award. From Arizona State University and Harvard Kennedy School. In addition to her work, she's the CEO of Balochistan Institute of Research and Development. Darwinia is currently serving on very significant official position from Government of Pakistan Task Force and agency, including technical advisor to the Chief Minister of Balochistan, Chairwoman, Human Resource Committee, and the member of Board of Directors, Trade Corporation of Pakistan, a Balochistan Program Coordinator for the Prime Minister's Task Force on the Knowledge Economy, member of Chief Minister's Task Force Balochistan on Youth, Education, Health, Sports, and Environment. You got a lot on your shoulders. Darwinia, please take this.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening everyone. I hope सब जाग रहे हैं, दोपहर का टाइम है, खाना खा चुके हैं, so I just want you all to just wake up because this is a very important session and I would like to say a big thanks to AMCAP, Dr. Bushra, and there's a team sitting here, Zaim Saab who contacted me and asked me to be here, so I'm so thankful. Media was always in my blood, coming from a tribal family and being the first tribal woman in media was a big challenge for me. But I've seen since last 10 years, I started with the radio, I worked with the print media, I worked in the electronic media as well. Then I started my career from 2010 and I started as a public relations officer from the university. And then I felt that, when we are talking and we are criticizing, it's so damn easy. I can question, I can target, and I can, troll government policies and everything. But when I was part of the university and I started working as a public relations officer, then that was the real challenge. Coming from Balochistan, we always debate, we hardly get a good content in national and international is far away, thanks to international radios like VOA, different radio channels and BBC, that they do somehow cover Balochistan, but when it comes to the national media, that was a big challenge. And now I was part of the university, and I was having a hammer on my head because my vice chancellor wanted that story need to be published in the newspaper. So as a public relation officer, I always used to approach journalists, KG, please publish kara dein, otherwise the VC will be very upset. Oh, this is my first job. So I really want to make, my presence very, loud. So they were like, oh, coming from the university, this content we don't want. I was like, what content you want? So they were like, politics, terrorism. And I was like, okay, but everybody know that we do have terrorism, we do have unrest, but there are issues related to the education as well. There are good things which are happening in the university. Like we are training students. There are new, curriculum has been introduced. There are people coming from abroad teaching and giving trainings to our students, and they were like, no, that's not the news for us. Okay, because I then managed to have some good context, so I managed to publish not a 4-column story, but at least a 2-column story. Then in 2011, I was selected for an International Center for Journalist Fellowship because I was also working for Teri Jang as a feature writer and reporter. So I traveled abroad having this perspective. Oh, Pakistan is all about politics and terrorism. So what we have in US. So I ended up to Merced Sun Star newspaper, which is a very small county in California. So my first day in that newspaper was I went to a community center, and there were people, they were, celebrating. And I was like, I just questioned a reporter. I was like, is it a news content? And he was like, yes, Julia, because, this is a county and we report such issues. I said, oh, that is Pakistan, it's completely different. So they were like, oh, really? I said, yeah, because even the local newspapers, they are least bothered about what community is doing, what women rights activists are doing, what is the human rights situation in Balochistan, what are things happening in madrasas. Nobody cares because we have left that human development far away. Now, what news is for us is more propaganda. And it's more related with the, criticizing. But then in US, I learned that, news is not only about something breaking or, there were some situation or but there are news which can help to reform, restructure the community as well. So here, I would like to strengthen upon ethics because when I came back, I joined the UNHCR. Being the spokesperson from Balochistan and refugees crisis was so big. Yes, they wanted to report about the refugees that, oh, Pakistan is hosting 1.4 million refugees and they are burdened, they are involved in, terrorism, they are involved in this, they are burdened on Pakistan economy. But nobody was ready to accept that, as a Muslim, we have this concept that when there is a war, people, they do leave their houses. And when somebody is coming from different country, you need to host them. वो जो एक अल्लाह ताला ने आपको हुकूकुल इबाद का जो हमें बताया है कि आपको हुकूकुल अल्लाह पे तो माफ कर दिया जाएगा लेकिन हुकूकुल इबाद पे माफ नहीं किया जाएगा. So there were stories against the refugees. Refugees are a burden. They are taking, Baloch are becoming minorities. Pashtuns are becoming the majority. Again, ethics were missing because they wanted to criticize so that, they can put pressure on the government and they can also put pressure on UNHCR. But, then there was a time when I used to engage with them. They were like, oh, Julia, why don't you arrange briefings for us? We would like to go to Samba to have a 3-night stay in Serena, and then we will love to know what protection of refugees are. And I was like, look, when I asked you to report, you said, no, they are burdened, they are this and they are that. But again, on the same time, you are asking me to arrange a training for you to be in Islamabad for 3 or 4 days. That is acceptable. So I believe in between ethics and personal interest, we have lost journalism. And now thanks to digital media, that everyone is becoming a journalist because, credit, and most of the journalists, they are not doing research. And that is why in 2017, I came up with this idea to have a a think tank in Balochistan, because I see that a lot of content is coming, ایک طریقے سے بلک انفارمیشن پروڈیوس ہو رہی ہے ایوری ڈے. یہاں پہ جتنے بھی آپ لوگ اسٹوڈینٹس بیٹھے ہوئے ہیں سب لگے ہوئے ہیں فیس بک پہ اور ٹویٹر پہ, ایوری ون از یوزنگ اٹ, بٹ جو ایک factual information hai, that is missing. So I thought, okay, think tank is a good idea, and we should come up, because the propaganda which we have against Balochistan, not only in Pakistan but internationally, because I traveled a lot in, and I was based in US, so every time they were like, oh, okay, there are separatist movement going on and all that. So I used to ask my journalist fellows, can kindly please report about it. There are people, even aapko pata hai 2-3 din se phir missing person ka issue chal raha hai, and yes, there are people who are missing, but they are, there are might be some, I don't want to go in that debate as well, but Balochistan ke jo asal issues hain usko nobody highlighted. So I always question کہ جی humanitarian side پہ آپ رپورٹنگ کرو, as I was mentioning کہ جی US میں community newspapers ہیں, وہ community leadership کی بات کرتے ہیں. Now we do not have any role model which exists. So I thoroughly believe جو senior journalists تھے, they should come up with a committee who can recommend, کیونکہ ہم نے تو ہم تو کسی اور طرف ہی نکل گئے. اگر گورنمنٹ legislation کرے گی, so we will be like, where the freedom of expression is. So I believe it's the responsibility of a senior journalist as well to come up with a committee who can recommend, کیونکہ وہ کہتے ہیں نا کہ اپنا ہی اپنے کو بات سمجھا سکتا ہے. اگر میں اور آپ کسی اور کے ڈومین میں انٹر ہوں گے تو ہم کہیں گے oh, this is freedom of expression, we don't understand, and everybody is expert now. Everybody thinks کہ جی ہم سیکھ چکے ہیں, اور I believe that there is always a point where we can learn, and ethics are, is inbuilt. میں آپ کو گھول کے نہیں پلا سکتی, آپ کو آپ کے ٹیچر جتنے لیکچر دے دیں, لیکن ایک انر جو آپ کا ایک جنگ ہوتی ہے نا جب آپ رات کو سوتے ہو, so you do analyze what you have done good or you have done bad. So that inner voice is also very important. So I believe in every profession, not only in journalism, even being a lawyer, this is your responsibility. جیسے ڈاکٹرز ایک اوتھ لیتے ہیں کہ ہم اگر ہم ڈاکٹر بن رہے ہیں تو لوگوں کی جو زندگی ہے اس کے ساتھ ہم نے کھیلنا نہیں ہے. تو آئی بلیو جب آپ جرنلسٹ بننا چاہتے ہو یا جب آپ جرنلسٹ ہو تو آپ کو ایک اپنے ساتھ یہ اوتھ کرنی چاہیے کہ میں لوگوں کے سینٹیمنٹس ان کے دماغ کے ساتھ نہیں, I will not propagate anything which goes against the state, against my people. Yes, coming up with the facts and figures is important, but yes, always talk about new ways and strategies کہ solution oriented کیسے ہوں. مسئلے بہت ہیں, 10 سوال کر دیے, لیکن we should now have the approach which reflect solutions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zaria, for sharing your personal experiences. We have with us now Mr. Sabook Saeed, again a very eminent broadcast journalist. He started his career with reporting. He stayed with Geo News for almost 11 years. Worked with Gold Network as well. He's from University of Virginia and contributor of regular writing to the News, Daily Chant, and Daily Express. Sir.
بہت شکریہ میڈم آپ کا, خصوصاً ڈاکٹر بشرا صاحبہ اور اسٹیج پر بیٹھے ہوئے میرے دوست بھی ہیں اور میرے معزز سادہ صاحبان بھی. اور بڑی عجیب سی بات یہ ہے کہ آج کلاس روم کے ٹیچر اور نیوز روم کے ٹیچر جو میرے یہاں سارے اکٹھے ہو گئے, تو میرے لیے بڑی خوشی کی بات ہے. اور ٹیچر کے سامنے بولنا کوئی اتنا آسان کام نہیں ہوتا. ٹیچر جو پڑھا لیتے ہیں جب وہ بچے سے دوبارہ پوچھیں تو وہ مجھے اس بات کو حاصل ہے لنچ کے بعد بیٹھنا دنیا کے اتنا دشوار ترین کام ہے. اور جس طرح آپ کو بٹھایا گیا مجھے وہ سمجھ آتی ہے کیونکہ میں بھی کبھی اس طرح بیٹھا کرتا. تو اب کچھ لوگ میں دیکھ رہا ہوں کہ سوشل میڈیا کا سیشن ہے اور مسلسل سوشل میڈیا استعمال کر رہے ہیں, شاید اس کانفرنس کے اپڈیٹ وہ شیئر کرنا چاہ رہے ہیں. لیکن میں آپ کے سامنے زیادہ گفتگو نہیں کروں گا. کچھ گنے چنے 4-5 جملے آپ کے سامنے بولوں گا. سوچنا آپ کا کام ہے. آپ ماشاءاللہ بڑے ذہین لوگ ہیں. اگر 5 سے زیادہ ہو جائیں تو آپ نے سمجھنے 5 ہی ہیں. سب سے پہلی بات تو یہ ہے کہ ہم اس وقت بات کر رہے ہیں ہمارا سوشل میڈیا اور اخلاقیات کے حوالے سے. میرے سے پہلے ہمیں یہ سمجھ جانا چاہیے کہ مین اسٹریم میڈیا کیا ہے اور سوشل میڈیا کیا ہے. مین اسٹریم میڈیا حدود اور قیود کا نام ہے کہ ہم کسی رول کے اندر بند ہو کر اپنا کام کرتے ہیں. اور سوشل میڈیا کی نہ کوئی اخلاقیات ہیں اور نہ ہی سوشل میڈیا کی کوئی حدود ہیں اور نہ ہی کوئی قیود ہیں. ہر چیز وہاں پہ خبر ہے. وہاں جھوٹ بھی خبر ہے, وہاں سچ بھی خبر ہے. اور وہاں پہ کوئی قدر نہیں ہے. آپ جو چاہیں جب چاہیں جس وقت چاہیں جیسا چاہیں جس انداز میں چاہیں وہ آپ بیان کر سکتے ہیں, وہ آپ لکھ سکتے ہیں. آپ کو پکڑنے والا نہیں ہے. آپ فیک اکاؤنٹ کے ذریعے بھی چیزیں پھیلا سکتے ہیں. ہم میں سے کئی لوگ ہیں ان کے نام پر اتنے فیک اکاؤنٹس بنے. ہم میرے سب 10 سال سے یہ رو رہے ہیں کہ ان کے نام پر یہ جو اکاؤنٹ ہے یہ جعلی ہے, یہ اکاؤنٹ جو ہے جعلی ہے, یہ میرا اکاؤنٹ نہیں ہے. لیکن سوشل میڈیا پر کیونکہ وہ چل رہا ہوتا ہے. میں نے گزشتہ رات وہ شاہد اللہ خان صاحب کا انتقال ہوا تو اس انتقال میں چھوٹی سی رپورٹ میں نے بنائی تو وہ نواز شریف صاحب کو ٹیگ کرنا چاہ رہا تھا تو تقریباً 70 سے زیادہ نواز شریف صاحب کے ٹویٹر پر اکاؤنٹ آ گئے. تو میں کہا کون سے والے کو ٹیگ کروں کہ یہ نواز شریف صاحب کا اکاؤنٹ ہے. تو کوئی بھی بندہ وہاں پہ کھڑا ہو کر اپنا اکاؤنٹ بنا سکتا ہے. اچھا, دوسری بات فیک نیوز کے حوالے سے یہ بھی کہنا چاہوں گا کہ صحافی کوئی بھی فیک نیوز نہیں دیتا. صحافی سے مس انفارمیشن ہو جاتی ہے, ڈس انفارمیشن ہو جاتی ہے. فیک نیوز صحافی نہیں دیتا. فیک نیوز اصل میں کسی اور کڑاہی میں تیار ہونے والا مواد ہے اور وہاں سے چمچہ بھر کے کبھی ARY کو دے دیا جاتا ہے, کبھی جیو کو دے دیا جاتا ہے, کبھی سما کو دے دیا جاتا ہے. تو وہاں سے سب پھر اپنی چھوٹی چمچیاں لے کر وہ اپنے حصے کا پروپیگنڈا جو ہے وہ شروع کر دیتے ہیں. صحافی خود کبھی بھی یہ کام نہیں کرتا, اس سے کہیں سے یہ چیز ملتی ہے. لیکن وقت کے ساتھ ساتھ ہم لوگوں نے یہ سیکھنا شروع کر دیا ہے کہ کون سے کارنر ایسے ہیں جہاں سے فیک نیوز ہمیں دی جاتی ہے اور پھر ہم نے اس کو اپنا جو طریقہ ہے کہ ہم کاؤنٹر چیک کرتے ہیں, لوگوں سے پوچھتے ہیں. تو پھر ہم نے وہ طریقہ سیکھ لیا اور وہ سیکھنے کے بعد اب ہم فیک نیوز دیتے ہوئے اس کو جانچ پڑتال کر کے اس پر ہم غور و فکر کر کے تب آگے پہنچاتے ہیں. لیکن سوشل میڈیا پر کیونکہ یہ چیزیں نہیں ہیں. ابھی ہارون صاحب ایک صاحب کا ذکر کر رہے تھے کہ ان کے جو فالوور ہیں وہ 1 ملین سے زیادہ ہیں. مجھے لگتا ہے کہ ہارون صاحب نے ان کا جو یوٹیوب چینل ہے وہ بہت عرصہ پہلے دیکھا ہے. اب وہ 2 ملین کے قریب ہو چکے ہیں کیونکہ زیادہ لوگ ان کو پسند کرتے ہیں. یہ آپ 2 ملین فالوور کے لیے ٹیپنگ کر رہے ہیں یا اچھا, تیسری بات جو میں تھوڑی سی آپ سے کرنا چاہوں گا کہ جو مجھے چیز سمجھ آئی ہے کہ میں نے بھی ماسٹر کیا پشاور یونیورسٹی سے تو ایک فرق مجھے لگا. اون سائد صاحب نے اس کی طرف ایک اشارہ بھی کیا. جو کچھ ہمیں نیوز روم میں پڑھایا جاتا ہے, کلاس روم میں پڑھایا جاتا ہے, وہ نیوز روم میں پریکٹس نہیں ہوتا. اور جو کچھ نیوز روم میں پریکٹس ہوتا ہے وہ کلاس روم میں پڑھایا نہیں جاتا. تو جو ان لرن کرنے کی بات ہوئی وہ ایک بہت بڑا ایشو ہے. اور ہمیں کہا جاتا ہے کہ اب جیسے پاکستانی یونیورسٹی سے کوئی بندہ انجینئرنگ کی ڈگری لے کر جب جاتا ہے کسی فیکٹری میں, کسی آفس میں, اسے کہتے ہیں کہ بھائی صاحب سب سے پہلے یہ جو چولا ہے نا یہ پہنیں اور ہم سے کام سیکھیں, ڈگری سائڈ بیٹھے ہیں. تو سیم یہ کام ہمارے ساتھ بھی ہوتا ہے. تو اب میرا خیال یہ ہے کہ اور دوسری بات شاید ڈاکٹر بشرا صاحبہ میں رہنمائی کریں گے اس سلسلے میں کہ جو کچھ ہم یونیورسٹیز میں پڑھ رہے ہوتے ہیں کیونکہ وہ ہمارے اس ملک کا ہے ہی نہیں ہے. کیونکہ جو تھیوریز ہمیں پڑھائی جاتی ہیں وہ یورپ کے کوئی اسکالرز ہیں, دانشور ہیں, ان کی تھیوریز ہمیں پڑھائی جاتی ہیں. وہ ہماری سوسائٹی کا مثالیں ہماری سوسائٹی کی نہیں ہوتے. مثالیں تو ہوتے ہیں لیکن مثالیں ہماری سوسائٹی کی نہیں ہوتی, جس کی وجہ سے ایک گیپ پیدا ہو جاتا ہے اور ہمیں لگتا ہے کہ ہم پڑھ کچھ اور رہے ہیں اور پریکٹس کچھ اور کر رہے ہیں. کیونکہ جرنلزم آپ اپنے علاقے کے اندر, اپنے ماحول کے اندر بیٹھ کے کرتے ہیں. اگر آپ وہاں سے باہر سے چیزیں لے کر آئیں گے تو میرا خیال ہے کہ میرا پس منظر مختلف ہے, میری لینگویج مختلف ہے, میرا کلچر مختلف ہے, میرا بولنے کا انداز, ہر چیز مختلف ہے. تو جب تک میں اسے اپنی سوسائٹی میں کھڑا ہو کر پریکٹس نہیں کروں گا تو شاید وہ ایک فرق جو ہے وہ باقی رہے گا. تو پتہ نہیں کب کرتی ہے یونیورسٹیاں, شاید اس لیے بھی ہو کہ حساب ہمارے پاکستان میں لوگوں کا لکھا ہوا ہو اور تھیوریز ہمارے پاکستان میں لوگوں کی لکھی ہوئی ہوں, تو شاید ہم اپنے آپ کو اس کے ساتھ ریلیٹ کر سکیں اور ہم اچھے طریقے سے اس کو پریکٹس کر سکیں. ایک اور جو مجھے خوف ہے اس کا میں آپ کے سامنے ذکر کر کے اجازت چاہوں گا, وہ یہ ہے کہ سوشل میڈیا بڑی تیزی کے ساتھ پاکستان میں پروموٹ ہو رہا ہے، پوری دنیا میں ہو رہا ہے، پاکستان میں بھی ہو رہا ہے. لیکن وہ کوئی بندہ کسی نے دوسرے نے پوچھا کہ تم اگر جنگل میں چلے جاؤ اور تمہارے سامنے شیر آ جائے تو تم کیا کرو گے؟ اس نے کہا میں نے کیا کرنا ہے، جو کچھ کرنا ہے تو اب شیئر نہیں کرنا ہے، تو میرے تو اختیار میں کچھ نہیں ہے. تو مسئلہ ہے کہ سوشل میڈیا کا جو شیئر ہے وہ اس وقت بھاڑ رہا ہے. اسے کنٹرول کیسے کرنا ہے، اس کے لیے تو ہم دیکھ رہے ہیں اپنی یونیورسٹیز کی طرف کہ یونیورسٹیاں ہماری کیا نصاب ترتیب دیتی ہیں. اور میرا خیال یہ ہے کہ مجھے صرف یونیورسٹی سرگودا کا علم ہے تو باقی شاید کچھ یونیورسٹیز یہ کام کر رہی ہوں گی، لیکن ایک نصاب تو ترتیب دینا چاہیے. اور وہ نصاب ترتیب دینا اس لیے بھی بڑا اہم ہے، اور کیونکہ میں نے پہلے کہا کہ سوشل میڈیا کی کوئی حدود نہیں ہے. جب اس کی حدود نہیں ہے تو وہاں پر ایک بہت بڑا پرابلم پیدا ہوا. ایک پرابلم جیسے سوشل میڈیا کی اخلاقیات کی جا رہی ہے، یہ صحافت کی اخلاقیات کے بارے میں بات کی جا رہی ہے. تو آپ ایک نیوز دیتے ہیں، وہاں پر ڈس انفارمیشن پھیلاتے ہیں اور جو چٹکلے بازی ہوتی ہے بہت تیزی کے ساتھ پروموٹ ہوتی ہے. لیکن بہت سی جس کا مجھے زیادہ خوف ہے وہ یہ ہے کہ سوشل میڈیا ایکسٹریمزم بہت تیزی کے ساتھ پھیل رہا ہے. وہ بھی انتہا پسندی فرقہ وارانہ جو واحد ہیں وہ بہت تیزی سے ساتھ پھیل رہے ہیں، اور ہمارے نوجوان لوگ جو ہیں وہ اس سے متاثر ہو رہے ہیں. اور آپ کو معلوم ہے کہ صرف متاثر نہیں ہو رہے ہیں، اس کے نتائج بھی پاکستان میں ملنا شروع ہو گئے. ہمارے ٹیچر، ہمارے بچے کالجز میں یونیورسٹیز میں تھریٹ فیل کرتے ہیں، ایک خوف کی فضا میں ہوتے ہیں. ٹیچر کوئی بات نہیں کرتا کہ کوئی بھی طالب علم اس کی ویڈیو بنا کر اپنے آگے سے سوشل میڈیا پر اپلوڈ کرے، اس کی زندگی میں بہت کا سامان ہو جاتا ہے. اور آپ نے دیکھا کہ ہمارے بچوں کو کیسے سوشل میڈیا کے ٹریک کیا گیا کی مثال آپ کے سامنے. اور ہمارے بچے ہمارے سامنے بیٹھتے ہیں، بڑے موسوار ہوتے ہیں، لیکن ان کا ذہن کس طرح تبدیل ہو رہا ہے وہ ہمیں نہیں پتہ چلتا. تو سوشل میڈیا کا ایک بڑا خوفناک جو حملہ ہمارے سوسائٹی کے اوپر ہو رہا ہے وہ اس حوالے سے ہو رہا ہے، کیونکہ ہمیں ایک ذہنی انتشار کی وجہ بنیادی طور پہ کیا ہے کہ ہمارے پاس معلومات بھی کم ہے، ہمارے پاس علم بھی کم ہے، ہمارے پاس جو بھی چیزیں آتی ہیں وہ ہاف کوک ہوتی ہیں، آدھی نہیں ہوتی. تو ہم وہ جو آدھی انفارمیشن ہے اس پر پورا ذہن بناتے ہیں. جب وہ ادھوری انفارمیشن پر پورا ذہن بنایا جائے گا اس کا نتیجہ اس کا مسئلہ یہ ہے کہ وہ پرابلم یہ ہو رہا ہے ہماری سوسائٹی میں کہ وہ ذہنی انتشار بڑی تیزی سے بڑھ رہا ہے. اور یہ کہہ دیا کہ سر بہت شکریہ.
I'm sorry for making अपना अगला सेशन करना है इसलिए थोड़ी टाइम लिमिट है. आप एक उसके भी हम भी साथ से प्लीज गवर्नमेंट सॉरी तो डॉक्टर
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Respectable Usha Sabha, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I must tell you that to University, and I respect why I feel pride because Fatima Jana, Mohtarma Fatima Jana, and it was just said that a journalist should always behave in a way that he should not do anything against the state. I respect this opinion, but I would like to remind you that you are students and teachers of Fatima Jinnah University, and Fatima Jinnah, who was the sister of the founder of Pakistan, she was declared a traitor by the state of Pakistan in 1964 by the then military dictator General Ayub Khan. At that time, there were some journalists in Pakistan who agreed with the state policy. They said, whatever General Ayub Khan is saying about Fatma Jinnah is 100% correct because he's the president of Pakistan. He represents the state of Pakistan. So if he's saying that Fatma Jinnah is a traitor, then she's a traitor. But there were some journalists who disagreed with the state policy at that time. And they said, no. The only crime of Fatma Jinnah was that she was struggling against a military dictator. She was contesting election against the military dictator, and the dictator declared her traitor just because of the political rivalry. Now, Fatma Jinnah is alive in our hearts and minds, and nobody cares about Ayub Khan. So that's why a journalist should always care about the public interest, not the national interest or the state interest, because public interest is supreme. If you are a journalist, you should take care of the public interest. Public होगी तो state होगी ना. अगर public ही नहीं होगी तो कौन सी state का interest protect करेंगे आप? Second thing, this session is about the media ethics and digital media ethics. I was told that this session is about the digital media ethics. So there is a law in Pakistan about the digital media, and that is called PICA. Mr. Harun Rashid mentioned about PICA. What is PICA? Pakistan Electronic Crimes Act. It was passed by the Nawaz Sharif's government, and then they were passing that cybercrime law. So at that time, we were of the view that there is not enough debate in the parliament about that law, and ultimately this law will be used against the political opponent. And it's happening now. Since it became kind of cases were registered without any complaint, just because there was a tweet or there was something against the government on the social media or digital media. So, how to control, how to impose a code of ethics on social media in Pakistan? If you will use this PICA law to control or to which will damage your freedom of expression or which will stop you for expressing your views boldly or bravely, that will not be accepted by the government. So that's why there is only one universal principle these days. For you can say that the main principle for code of ethics in electronic media, print media, and digital media. Always use your freedom with responsibility. अपनी आजादी को जिम्मेदारी के साथ इस्तेमाल करें. There is an article in the Constitution of Pakistan. It is Article 19. And if you read Article 19 very carefully, you will realize that there are certain restrictions in that article. There is a general perception that Article 19 is about the freedom of speech, it is about the freedom of media. But it's a very small article. Let me read it for you. And I will not make any comment, and you will find some restrictions in Article 19. Why I am reading this article? Because there are certain agencies like I mentioned FIA, and there are some other agencies. They are using this Article 19, not only PICA law, but they are also using Article 19 to prosecute many journalists and social media activists. I have seen a charge sheet against a journalist, and Article 19 was mentioned in that your tweet, the name of the journalist is Asatur, and he made some tweet, and somebody lodged a complaint against him in a police station, and he was accused that he is working against the integrity of Pakistan. Now, what is Article 19? Every citizen shall have the right to freedom of speech and expression, and there shall be freedom of the press subject to any reasonable restrictions imposed by law in the interest of the glory of Islam or the integrity, security, or defense of Pakistan or any part thereof, friendly relations with foreign states, public order, decency, or morality, or in relation to contempt of court, or incitement to an offense. Now, if I criticize Pakistan America relations, or if I make some comment about the relations between Pakistan and China, or Pakistan or Saudi Arabia, all of them are called friends of Pakistan. But if the government is not happy about my comment, they can use this Article 19 against me, and they can prosecute me, and they can prosecute you. Now, what is the difference between digital media, you call it social media, we call it irregular media? What is the difference between digital media and regular media? The difference is that I am accountable whatever I am saying on my TV channel. I am accountable whatever I am writing in my newspaper. Arun Rashid is accountable, Mr. Malik is accountable, Mr. Buksel is accountable. But if someone just created a fake account on Twitter or Facebook, and he is spreading disinformation and lies against anyone, he is not accountable. He is not accountable to anyone. This is the main difference. So that's why there is a problem. There is, you can say that digital media is less credible, and even today there is a lot of criticism against TV channels and newspapers. But even today, the governments, they don't make their policies on the basis of the material emerging on social media. They make their policies, they make their decisions on the basis of the newspaper editorials and the made bulletins on different TV channels. So this is the difference, that the regular media is answerable and digital media is not answerable. If they are hiding their identity or their names or their faces, so they are not answerable to anyone. This is the main difference. Second thing, that if a journalist is using digital media to spread his message, then he is facing more pressure than those people who are not journalists. Now, I will give you my example. A few weeks back, my organization was contacted by the government of UK, and they asked that we need a message from Mr. Hamid that the Pakistanis living in United Kingdom, they must vaccinate for the COVID-19, because most of them are not ready for the vaccination. They think that there is some problem, there is some conspiracy theories behind this COVID vaccination. So they need a video message from you, 30-second video message. I said, okay, no problem. So I gone through some material, it was credible, so I recorded a statement. I gave it, they used it in UK on different TV channels. Then they asked me that I should tweet that video message. So I tweeted that. When I tweeted that, I noticed that there are a lot of critical comments on my Twitter timeline. and many Pakistanis called Desis living in UK, they are asking very difficult questions to me. And few days back, one of my colleagues in London, he called me and he said he named a member of the UK Parliament. She is of the Pakistani origin, and he said that she wanted to talk to you. So I said, okay, I'm ready to talk to her. So she said, "Assalamualaikum, Hamid साहब कैसे हैं, खैरियत से हैं? ये मेरी अम्मा जो है ना, इनसे आप बात कर लें." मैंने कहा, आपकी अम्मा से बात? हाँ, मेरी अम्मा आपसे बात करना चाहती है। तो उन्होंने उनको फोन पकड़ा दिया। अम्मा जी ने कहा, पुत्र की हाल है? मैं कहा, जी अम्मा जी मैं ठीक ठाक। तो अम्मा जी ने कहा, फिर मैं टीका लगा लवां? मैं कहा, अम्मा जी केड़ा टीका? ओ निक्की ने तेरा मैनू कलाम सुनाया, तू कह रहे हैं टीका लगा लो, ते मैं ਇਹਦੀ ਗੱਲ नहीं मन्नी, ते हुण निक्की, मैं कहा जी निक्की कौन है? और मेरी पोतरी है, पोतरी। तो मैंने कहा, अम्मा जी आप टीका लगवा लें, इस टीके में कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। नहीं पुत्र देख ले, वो मैं पाकिस्तान की वजीर सेहत है, वो सुन रही सा टीवी ते, तेरे टीवी ते सुन रही सा, वो कह रही सी बंदा मर भी सकता है। मैं क्या, हमारी वो पाकिस्तान की वजीर सेहत है, आप यूके में बैठी हुई है, तो वहां पे जो उनका नेशनल हेल्थ सर्विसेज है वो बड़ा अच्छा, आप टीका लगवा लें। मैं देख लगी, फिर ये मैंने कुछ हो गया तो तेरी जिम्मेदारी है। मैं कहती नहीं अम्मा जी आपको कुछ नहीं हो, फिर मैं लगा लवा टीका। मैंने कुछ सोचा, मैं कहा किसी ना लगवाओ, तो पब्लिक प्रेशर होता है। तो ये मैंने आपको इसलिए बात बताई है कि मैं जिसकी शक्ल आपको नजर आ रही है, मेरा नाम आपको पता है, मैं आपको आपके सामने आंसरेबल हूँ। अम्मा जी को कल को कुछ हो गया तो उनकी बेटी ने मुझे नहीं छोड़ना, वो यूके पार्लियामेंट में मेरे खिलाफ रेजोल्यूशन भी मंजूर कर सकती है। लेकिन जो लोग डिजिटल मीडिया पे झूठे अकाउंट बना के झूठ बोलते हैं, डिसइंफॉर्मेशन फैलाते हैं मेरे खिलाफ, उसके खिलाफ, सियासतदानों के खिलाफ, वो दे आर नॉट आंसरेबल। सो देयर इज अ नीड that the Twitter or Facebook and the other international companies who are famous for these different social media tools, they should find out some way to make a check and balance. Because if there is no check, there is a check and balance for a TV channel and a newspaper, but there is no check and balance, a proper check and balance, an effective check and balance for Twitter, for Facebook, and for YouTube. So that's the difference. And I will only say that if you want to use digital media for the welfare of your company or for the welfare of your institution or for the welfare of your country, then you must use your freedom on digital media with a lot of responsibility. Article 19 will not help you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. We have very short time for one or two questions. If you have any, please. Okay, so I'm given a signal that we are running short of time. Maybe I can request all the respected guests to talk for the group photo, please. Along with department faculty, communication science faculty, Sir, please join us for the stage.
ਹੁਣ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਹਾਫੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਨੇੜੇ ਬਿਠਾ ਦੇ ਤਾਂ ਕੀ ਕਰੀਏ? ਤੇ ਸਹਾਫੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਨੇੜੇ ਬਿਠਾ ਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਗਲਤ ਕਰਨੀ ਯਾਰ ਤੂੰ ਵੀ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਦੱਸੋ ਕਿ ਤੂੰ ਵੀ ਸਹਾਫੀ ਹੈ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਸਹਾਫੀ ਹੋ। ਮਿਹਰਬਾਨੀ ਨਾਲ ਜੋ ਤਸਵੀਰਾਂ ਬਣਾਉਣਾ ਵੈਸੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਖਬਰਾਂ ਚੱਲਦੀਆਂ ਤਸਵੀਰਾਂ ਵੀ Sorry for the disturbance.
I request Malik Saab to please give souvenirs to our panelists. Waiting for our closing out.
यार इसको